Kick out the jails, motherfucker!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Machtails from the Cantina Live, episode 54. On tonight's show, actress Iabou Windimere is here.
I think somebody's watching us.
You remember her from The Force Among Us. She had recently taken a trip to Todd Fisher's house, and she's here to tell us all about it.
Hold up here and wait for my signal.
Start your run.
Sit back, crack open a cold one, smoke if you got 'em. I am your show host and documentarian that brought you The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us, The Walkers Among Us, the real fans of the saga, and we are live inside the Wampa Cave. Let the tomfoolery and hijinks begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Machtails from the Cantina. We got a great show for you today. This is long overdue. Iabou Windimere, who you guys remember from The Force Among Us, is finally going to join the show. It happened quite quickly. I have to tell you guys, I am doing this show by myself. I got an old-fashioned Machtails from the Cantina YouTube style show for you this evening. Lots of B-roll, lots of great photos. I'm doing this solo. If I flew the Millennium Falcon, which I did, at Galaxy's Edge by myself more than once, I am sure I'm going to be able to do this just fine. A big shout out, though, to producer Matthew Rooney, who was not able to join us this evening. He does so much hard work behind the scenes on the show. And I want to give a shout out to all the Patreon supporters. You know I love the producers. And I love all the people even down to the $2 level. Yes, just the people that are tuning into the weekly podcast show. Look, there's no super chats on this show. I'm taking all the comments. A lot of work goes into this. I got a rat on my tin cup. His brother Jimmy Mack always tells me that's what he sees me do a lot, and I have to do it tonight. If you guys are tuning in and are not part of the Machtails from the Cantina Patreon community, you might want to consider it. $2 gets you in the door. Plus, I got to pay fees on top of that. Part of being a Patreon supporter is we have contests. But here's the thing. Today, we're not doing the name draw. Today, the first one that chimes in at the end of the show with the comment in the comment section, drinking word of the night is Leia. So you have to remember that. You have to be tuning in right now. You have to stay for the entire show, which is a show you're not going to want to miss. And remember, guys, this is a 21 and over show. Please drink responsibly, and don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. Speaking about drinking, this is a segment that I cannot do without a cheer and a beer segment with my good friend, brother, and Patreon supporter, brother Rich Brendel. Rich.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, cheers, man. How are you? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
Not where we are. It is Saturday. Hey, I got to tease this. This Tuesday, we have the Ted Lasso Love Fest. Okay, we're not doing a Machtails Valentine's Day episode, but love is in the air, and our love for Ted Lasso, thanks to you, my friend. I had been turned on to this show and could not get enough. Brother Brian Klein, show producer, is going to be joining us, along with David Gladding, who is also, I had to have him on the Ted Lasso episode because he is from the UK and he's a huge fan of football over there. He loved the show. So I'm looking forward to a great roundtable with you guys, good friends, Patreon supporters. Rich, what are you raising your glass to today, my friend?
You know, it's been a great week.
even though it's a little chillier today, it feels like it's starting to get warmer. We had it like up to 50 earlier this week. So, to warmer days.
Hey,
And this is a fish fry rye from Mobcraft Brewery. So, to warmer days.
Hey, a mocktail exclusive. You're the only one that can do that, and I love hearing from you, brother. And yes, to warmer days, amen to that. Rich, we'll see you on Tuesday, man. Looking forward to the Ted Lasso Love Fest.
It's gonna be awesome.
All right, cheers, brother. Have a good weekend, man.
You too.
We'll see you. Without further ado, this has been 16 and a half years in the making, a reunion for us here. Would you please welcome to the show for the first time, and definitely not the last, Iabou Windimere.
Hi, Chris. Great to be here.
It is more than great to have you on the show. I got to tell you, people remember you from that scene. I put you in front of the fireplace at Dustin Roberts' house. Dustin had reached out to me, and he had said, you're going to want to have this girl on camera in front of the fireplace because you're trying to break the stereotypes. And I said, you know what? What better way than to have you do that for us? A little blast from the past here. I want to, you guys remember this. It feels like yesterday, but it was 16 and a half years ago.
It's great. I can't believe it was that long ago.
It's crazy. We've already celebrated the 15th anniversary of the documentary. What do you remember from that day? I know you came out to the red carpet event here in Woodridge. I always appreciated you for that because that was a special day for us. You have good memories, bad memories around the Force Among Us?
Oh my gosh, nothing but positive memories. So it's the first things that come to mind. Funny enough, do you know that there's probably 3 or 4 reviews that were done on The Force Among Us that I had found out there that actually claimed that there was no possible way that I could have been a Star Wars fan.
And why not? Why not?
I know. And every one of those reviews I commented on, I said, hey, this is the girl in front of the fireplace. I am real. And I am a real person. I was not cast into that or anything. Like, it's so funny. And do you know that I've been to conventions and people have actually recognized me from your movie?
Really?
Yeah, I know there's one of the Star Wars celebrations, at least 3 or 4 people when I was waiting in line to get the was one of the figures, you know, the special figure. I think it was the Darth Vader figure. I don't know if you remember that one at Star Wars Celebrations.
Yeah, the talking Darth Vader. We had Celebration 3 that was.
Yeah. Like multiple people stopped me and recognized me from your movie, just waiting in line for that figure.
And you know what? Hold on, you sparked my my memory train here. Okay, that would have been it wouldn't have been the Darth Vader action figure because that one came out before we shot you. But here's the thing. I feel like those early days of Celebration, starting with number 2, all the way until, God, probably Celebration maybe 6 even, there was always a figure. There was
always a figure. So it was one of them. I don't remember. Maybe I just don't remember which one, I guess.
Well, you know what? Because we have so many, and I know a lot of people, especially my good friend Duffy, who was in The Force Among Us, he goes, what is it with you and the years? I'm like, I keep this calendar in my head from yesteryear, and I guess it keeps me in check, knowing that I'm not completely insane and that I've lost my mind altogether. But we have so much stuff. Now, you're a collector. I was reading your IMDb bio, and I was super impressed. There's a lot of things I wanted to talk to you regarding that. But hey, before I do this, and I don't want to forget, there is somebody that produces this show, Mocktails from the Cantina. He was so excited that you were going to be on the show. He goes back to your Florida days. Brandon Wolgast.
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember Brandon?
Yes, I do. I do remember Brandon.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, when you had seen The Force Among Us and you already knew her beforehand, and he said it was so long ago that he had seen the movie. He said, yeah, I remember like losing my shit going, I know that girl. Because you were obviously in the Midwest at this point.
Right.
Had left Florida behind you. But yeah, Brandon says hello. And he also said that going through the photos that he had that he shared with me, this is one of them. He said that those days are warm and fuzzy to him because that was a time when you guys would get together in the small but intimate fan groups, collector groups, and talk about Star Wars without all this hatred that social media has brought to the table. You've been a fan for a long time. How are you dealing with Star Wars fandom now versus back in these more innocent early days?
Well, back then we were all considered nerds. It's more mainstream to be a Star Wars fan now, which I'm still having a really hard time adjusting to. It used to be you kind of, if you got too nerdy about Star Wars, you had to be careful with your audience or people are going to stop listening to you. But now, your neighbor might know things about Star Wars that you also know. And so it's very strange. I'm still stuck in those old days where it's like anytime I find out someone's a Star Wars fan, that means that they're a hardcore Star Wars fan. But now someone who's seen the movies will say, oh yeah, I'm a fan of Star Wars.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like if you come to my house, you see Star Wars stuff everywhere. There's a difference between me and you. It's like you want to tell people that. I really do miss I miss and reminisce about those old days all the time where we just Star Wars fans just grouped together. We all loved it. You had to work hard to be a Star Wars fan back in those days.
You really did, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, you like you said, you used the N-word. It's like the media was attacking us. It wasn't the hate from the fan base on social media, but it was the media. So we did say it loud and say it proud, but you had to kind of wear it as somewhat as a badge of honor. And kind of stand by it and defend it. And you had to work hard too from a collector standpoint, especially before the eBay days.
Right.
Because Star Wars was not everywhere like it is now,
Right. It wasn't at all. Yeah. Even to get a costume, like, I don't know if you knew this, but I almost paid my way through college making Star Wars costumes, selling them on eBay.
Yeah, because they were so hard to get.
They were hard, yeah. Yeah, and now you can't even do that, really, now, because things have changed and the ownership of Star Wars has changed.
Yeah, sure.
It's a different world, so yeah, I still
When
have
George had it,
Star Wars costumes, but
yeah, when George had it, it was the Wild West, right? I mean,
yeah.
It wasn't, cease and desist nation.
Right, yeah.
And of course now, I do know that people, they want to maybe be more involved themselves and maybe not as lazy about it. But I think, one of the good things about the internet is it's become a tool. It's been a great resource for fans to, find images, videos, tutorials on how to do this shit. But again, it's taken the fun out of, especially collecting, like the fun of the hunt. Now you just go to Hasbro and you pre-order everything before it even hits the shelves. Now, are you still collecting Star Wars? I know you've been a collector, but are you still active as a collector?
I don't buy as much stuff now just because I've collected for so long and I don't have a lot of room for new stuff.
Yeah, right.
I think more of the stuff now will be if I find there was like a rare figure that I didn't know existed, maybe I'll get that. I've
Well,
gotten into a lot more of like the art and stuff like that.
okay.
So I've collected a lot more like Star Wars art, like fan art. Because, in a way that does bring me back to, how I said, like, it used to be you could, I could sell Star Wars costumes, and we had a whole network of people who made different things for different Star Wars costumes. The art side of fandom is one of the sides that I think will never be able to get rid of. And there's so much original fan art out there that's something I really enjoy collecting on that side. Although I am still running out of walls, so...
It's a good friend of mine, producer of the show, Brian Klein. He's got a folder of all the posters because there's just not enough space on the wall for this, and I'm obviously running out of space, and I feel like Steve Sansweet preached us that back in the early 2000s. Time, space, and money are the issues with collecting. Now, I read it too on your biography, and part of the thing that we like to do on this Mocktails show is get to know each other even that much more. I thought it was super cool that you collected the fortunes from the fortune cookies.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, I did that for a while.
How long ago was that bio written?
So yeah, I had this weird thing, and it's still to this day, I still collect fortunes. I have a little journal I tape them into, and I will I'll tape the fortune in there, and I will write under it the weird things that happen, how that fortune came true.
Now, what is your most favorite fortune that had come true, and what is the one fortune that you're still waiting on?
So I don't know what my favorite one is, but it's probably the one I'm waiting to come true. I was probably in high school, and I was sitting in a Chinese restaurant, obviously. And I can remember the exact restaurant I was sitting in, and I randomly got this fortune, and it said, someday all of your life's wishes will become true.
All of your life, that's a lot.
Yeah. And I was like, it was just the most epic fortune ever. And I was like, oh my gosh, so I was so young. It's like no one had ever just said that to me. And it blew my mind in the moment. I was looking to, start my career, and my life was getting ready to start, and to get a fortune like that. It was the coolest thing ever. So that
you still have the
fortune that I held on to.
That's the one you're still holding on, you're still waiting on.
Yeah, I'm like, I always ask myself, that's the test. I'm like, are we to that yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah, right. And you know what? I don't know. It brings back a quote that Irvin Kershner, obviously the director of Empire Strikes Back, had said, life's a long journey, right? I'm paraphrasing this, but he said, nobody's ever mature. He said, because as the years go on, we're still growing. And you can relate that to that fortune, because I'm sure every year you wish for something that you hadn't wished for before. So that's like, the fortune that just is going to keep going through time with you. That's crazy. Now, I also read that you collect odd shoes. What is the oddest shoe that you have in your collection?
You'll love this. And I knew you were going to ask that. I would have had it right here with me. I have an R2-D2 shoe. That was custom design. My husband got it off of Etsy. But I actually wore those shoes when I got married.
Okay, so it's because I've seen some crazy shoes where I'm like, there's no way anybody could wear that shoe.
Yeah, they're really tall. Their heel's about this tall, and they got all this stuff glued on them, and it has a little ball thing that whenever you step, it lights up. But they're painted to look like R2-D2. They're like so my favorite shoe.
You wore those on your wedding day.
I wore them on my wedding day. Yeah.
Have you worn them since?
Once or twice. I don't want to mess them up because.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you said your husband got those for you as a gift.
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds like something that I would like to have in my display case. Cool custom things made by the fans that, you don't want to
Right.
wear those too much because it's one of a kind item.
Right, yeah, and so that's why more of my collecting has gone down that kinda, like, artsy type stuff when it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah, the more
Yeah,
unique stuff that you can't buy in the store, right?
right.
Well, I want to go back to the Force Among Us a little bit. So we sold out the 1977 copies. It took a long time, but we finally did it. And there were still people that, hey, I never saw the movie, so we reissued it. And I decided, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but I decided to add you to the back cover here. I should have had you on the original back cover. But for some reason I didn't. So I had Dan Manson, obviously, at the bottom left, my friend John Duffy, just kind of reworked the artwork. And you talked about, the Slave Leia costume in The Force Among Us. And I
Right.
went back and I used some B-roll that we had shot at Celebration in Orlando while we were filming my sequel to this documentary. And then you had reached out to me the other day, actually. This having you on the show happened fast, which I like because there's people that I've been inviting on this fucking show for like a good year and a half. Still waiting. So when you reached out to me and said, "Hey, I went to Todd Fisher's house, Carrie Fisher's brother," I was like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." And you had said, "Hey, he has the original Slave Leia." I still call her Slave Leia. That's the generation that Slayer Leia, whatever you want to call her. He had the costume. He's quite a collector himself. Let me ask you this first and foremost: how did you end up at Todd Fisher's house?
So, the funniest part of this story is that literally we had an address. We were going to this party. He's married to Catherine Hickland, who's done a lot of things. She was in Knight Rider. She was on One Life to Live. But she's also a hypnotist and mentalist. And my husband is actually a stage hypnotist as well. So we knew her through that circle. So, all I really knew is well, hey, there was a party. One of the other hypnotists had invited us. It's like Catherine and Todd's house. We had the address, so we just got an Uber to go there. They drop us off and it's this huge house.
Well, obviously,
like, right. And I'm like, okay, this night's getting a little more interesting. We walk up to the house, and I had heard some people talking earlier in the day, like, oh yeah, like Catherine's husband Todd is a collector. He's got some movie memorabilia. And talk about downplaying what was about to happen.
So you knew it was Todd, but you didn't know it was Todd Fisher.
I didn't know it was Todd Fisher. Yeah. It's crazy. And yeah, we're waiting to go in the front door, and there's these humongous Egyptian type statues. And I made a joke to my husband. I was like, would it be great to have those when we made our Egyptian movie? Because we're also filmmakers. It's so funny that I said that looking back, because I later found out that those statues were from Cleopatra.
Oh, God. Screen used from Cleopatra.
Right. And I didn't know that when I made those jokes. But we come in, and there's all of these lenses from all of these famous movies like The Shining, Godfather, all these cameras. And I'm just like, okay, it's right in the front door. I'm like, this is weird. It's like I have a house full of memorabilia from movies that I've made, but this is different. This is like way a jump up. It's a huge version of My Little Life is what it felt like. And then all of a sudden, I feel like in my head, it's like the fog clears. And I see in a glass case in front of me, the white costume, Carrie Fisher's white costume. And then to the left of it, not behind glass, is a Slave Leia costume. And I'm like, this is so weird. I was like, I know, I did. I like from what I remember about the Slave Leia costume is the last person who owned it was the actual designer, and that he was holding on to it.
Right,
And,
right.
right. And I'm like, there's no way I just walked into a house that has the Slave Leia costume. That's got to be a replica, right? And yeah, and I walk around like all the little display cases he has, like all these cameras. There's like Charlie Chapman's camera. I see a picture of the stand that says ILM as in Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
There's the actual camera that all of the special effects were filmed on for Star Wars, for the original Star Wars movies was there.
Is this the camera here that shot?
That is Charlie Chapman's camera. Is what that camera is.
Just hanging out in the open like that, or he took it out of the case.
Them. It was crazy. He actually took some of the lenses from that film The Godfather out of the case, and he's like, "Here, just hold and twist it." Yeah, those lenses right there. And I took them out, and he let me touch them. But even before that point, so I get around to the back side of the main cases in there, and I notice there's all this stuff with Debbie Reynolds. All this memorabilia for Debbie Reynolds. There's her awards. There's Oscar.
Yeah, because I want to say that Debbie was kind of a collector herself as well. Yes.
Yes, apparently that's where a lot of his collection is from. And so there's things like passports, and then I get to the more family stuff. There was a display with some family photos and everything, and I look and there's birth certificates behind glass. I was like, why are there birth certificates behind glass? That's different. Yeah, And I'm reading it, I'm like, Debbie Reynolds, mother Carrie Fisher, her birth certificate. I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot that Debbie Reynolds was Carrie Fisher. I had just forgotten about that in a moment. And then I noticed another birth certificate says Debbie Reynolds with Todd Fisher. I was like, Todd Fisher. And I'm like, I stop and I start putting things down. We're looking around, and then I start texting my husband, who had ran out to talk to his hypnotist friends. I'm like, that Todd is Debbie Reynolds' son, as in Carrie Fisher's brother. I was like, we're in Todd Fisher's house. And I'm like, where are you? And then it hits me. Everything I'm looking at is real. None of these are replicas.
Now, did your husband know that was Todd Fisher before you did, or did you? Is this
apparently
something you guys experienced?
He claims that he found out right before I texted him, and so he was thinking, "Oh my gosh, like Ia's gonna lose her mind." Yeah. And I will not lie. Okay, like the geekiest fandom in me all came out to the surface, and I got so overwhelmed. I was almost in tears.
I could imagine. I
just could not believe it. And I walked back around, and I'm looking at the Slave Leia bikini, and it's hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't a replica. I think this is the real. And I just, my stomach drops to the floor. And so their assistant, Seth, comes up to me and says, hey, is there anything here you want to know about? And I turn and look at Seth. I'm like, honestly, I'm a little overwhelmed. I was like, this is unreal.
You're trying to be calm, cool, collected, right?
Yeah, and I was about to just cry. I just couldn't believe it. It was just so overwhelming. It was so surreal. And then Catherine comes around the corner, and I told her, I was like, you don't understand. I'm like a huge Star Wars fan, and I'm a huge filmmaker, and I was not prepared for this. And then she's like, well, let me go get Todd. So she goes off, gets Todd, brings him back, and Todd's like, would you like a personal tour of all this stuff? Yes, I would,
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So he was very, very cool guy, he was.
He was like just so normal about it. It was just nothing to him. Honestly, like he was his mom and his sister's biggest fan, to tell you the truth. It's like he loves them dearly. I've seen things on the internet where he referred to them as his girls, and that's really how he feels about them. He had every camera that his sister Carrie ever owned, like every camera to take pictures. He had them all lined up behind glass. And it's like when you learn that aspect, all of this changes, Yeah, you start learning like all of the love he has for all these pieces. Like these items are with the right person, Yeah. And Todd was just telling me all these stories about his sister and how she argued with George about the costumes. And so that was the one thing he really loved about the two costumes, was just that, like, you know, she had to argue with George so much about, hey, this isn't comfortable. You got to give me a little more here. You got to make this comfortable to wear. And yeah, he's talking about all these stories, just like, oh, you know, it's someone in my family.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, like you said, it belongs with him. I do know that there's a big collector. You might know of him. I know he's written some books. He's been at celebrations doing panels. Gus Lopez. He has not been on the show before, and I've had some contact with him over several years. But I know he owns one of the costumes, so.
Okay.
I'm curious to find out how many. There's probably not many, if more than two. One he owns and one Todd Fisher owns. You know, here's a cool story. Not only did he end up with this stuff, but the cool thing is that he was a cool, down to earth guy, and I think that as fans, when you meet somebody like him. And I know he wasn't in Star Wars, but he's definitely connected to some really, really high royalty. The fact that he's just a down-to-earth person and was like showing you his collection and, you know, telling these stories, it just makes it that much more wholesome, you know?
Yeah.
It really, really does. I wanted to ask you, what is this? I could not figure out what this is, but I know it's connected to Carrie and Star Wars.
Right. So, okay. And it's funny. I took so many pictures, a lot of pictures. I was like, I guess I was so excited. I didn't really take as many pictures as I thought I had. But I wish you could have seen that whole shelf. So that whole shelf were things that were, as he described it to me. I mean, he told me so much, it's hard to remember everything. But they were things that were props from like movies that were supposed to happen or things that were supposed to happen. I mean, like one of the things he had was a lightsaber that that Carrie was supposed to have in the movies, but she died before they got to film that version of Star Wars with her. So like, I know there were a lot of this, I think this said Star Wars, the Western or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know a whole lot about that, but I took that picture. My plan was to research exactly what that was from. But yeah, he said, so these were all like props. He had all of her guns she had from the movies that she had used. But I thought that was interesting, the Star Wars, the Western. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it.
Well, I know they've always called it, you know, when you read about it, especially when it came out, you know, it was kind of a spaghetti Western kind of feel. And then when I met John Wayne's grandson, who did all the stunts in The Mandalorian, for The Mandalorian, I was like, okay, this is kind of making a little bit more sense that it was kind of a space Western. And then I saw this gun. I'm like, this is kind of crazy, trying to connect the dots here. Is this screen used? And I want to tell the viewers out there that if you go to YouTube, he's done some stuff on YouTube that he goes in depth with some of these pieces in his collection. Almost like a personal tour on YouTube, if you will. But these guns, are they screen used?
That's what he said. He said that they were screen used guns from the movies. So,
and it looks like this is to the book to the left there. I'm assuming it's covered up by the gun, but I'm assuming that's Revenge of the Jedi. And these are OT books, maybe
these are scripts,
drafts of some kind.
These are Carrie Fisher's scripts from when she made the movies.
Those are her scripts.
They're her scripts. Yeah. He actually, like, he didn't do this for anyone else, but he did this for me. He took the scripts out and was like fanning through them, and they were all signed by George Lucas. And he said these were her personal scripts from the movies. So,
and you know what? If you say these belong in a museum, they are in a museum. They're just in Todd Fisher's personal museum.
Right.
Crazy. The story behind this one. Now, I do know that plaque that's on the seat of the chair, if you will, I finally got a chance this year, last month, to go to the Chinese theater.
Oh, cool.
And this image of her is actually in the ground. do you know what this image is? It may be the original plate of before they carry that image into the concrete at the Chinese theater.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So it's funny. I made sure I took a lot of the pictures of some of that stuff that was over there. It was beside the Slave Leia bikini. So I can tell you that my mind was very overwhelmed.
Right. I can
Slave Leia
imagine.
bikini right beside that. So yeah, I don't know what was the story behind those. And there were actually a couple, if I remember right, a couple director's chairs of hers with stuff in it. But I mean, he has so much memorabilia. He just has stuff sitting all around. Like one of these nights, I'm just going to go back through all my pictures and just find all the little Easter eggs of things that he had. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know this image. Like I said, the seat of the chair, that is connected to her tribute that is at the Chinese theater. Maybe that is the original plate that they used. I'm assuming, I'm taking a guess here. But man, it was an honor to have you send me these images, and I thank you for sharing the stories and your night there. I want to get into your career a little bit. You've obviously done more than just The Force Among Us. But reading your bio, it sounded like it had started years ago. And at the same time, you were an engineer. You went to was it the University of Florida?
University of Central Florida. Yeah. I actually have a degree in aerospace engineering.
Yeah, I mean, you're a well-educated woman, and here you are in the film world. How did you make the transition? Are you still doing engineer work? I know you had mentioned that in your interview I gave you in The Force Among Us. So how'd you go from there to here?
So I'm still an engineer. I did take some time off from engineering and I just focused on film for a little bit. But now I've kind of settled back on the film in the sense that I'm very like particular for what things I'm involved with. I only really make movies with people I've kind of already made movies with before. I've gotten into kind of directing and producing some short films along the way, and I have a scripted podcast I do as well. But I am still a full-time engineer now again. I actually have a patent for a chopper pump that I designed. So my heart's on both sides of that career track between
I'm assuming your engineering career is allowing you to be in the film world. It's paying the bills.
Correct. Yes. Because making movies is not cheap at all.
No, and it's not easy, as you know. I mean, your IMDb credit, I don't know how you had found the time, but I wrote it down somewhere, but it's 50 plus. And you wrote, directed, produced, you composed music. I mean, you're very, very, very involved. How did you find the time?
Well, I hate being still. I hate having time where I'm not doing anything. Honestly, that's the biggest thing I can say. I'm happiest whenever I'm creating things. So, and that's why I like the engineering side of things, because I like creating things there. I love stories, I love characters that you can get into. And that's why I said, as years have passed, I'm a lot more kind of selective in the projects I will be a part of. I'm kind of pulling back a little bit on the acting actually in other people's stuff and actually doing more of my own stuff. Because that's really where, and as you said, where do you find the time? So I'm really trying to think about this, where I'm going from here, what I want to focus my time on. And there's some stories and quote like universes, that I've created that I'm focusing on creating content for those, which is why I like Star Wars so much, because there's so much, content.
Yeah, I mean, especially now. I mean, there's even that much more of a bigger world. The Star Wars world, and so much Star Wars content. Now, you mentioned that you have your own podcast. Where can people listen to your show, and what's your show about?
So you can go to my website, podcast.villainilegacy.com is where I have my podcast at. It's a very original podcast. It's about a girl who is searching a serial killer. But it is set in like a city that doesn't exist, and she's interviewing all these characters to try and figure it out. It's a lot of work goes into it. I mean, every word in the podcast is scripted. I write it down, and these are like, hour or more long episodes. I have scripts stacked this high, that I've written for these.
Yeah, right.
I maybe got in a little over my head as far as what really goes into it to make these episodes, but I have a decent like fan following for it so far too. But yeah, if you go to podcast.villainilegacy.com, that's where I have it. It's called Villainy Unsearchable.
And you can find this on Apple.
It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube is the main place that I have it at. I've just started releasing the audio versions of it on like Apple and I think it's on Spotify as well.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many different platforms, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's too many. There
are too many. Yeah. I can't.
It's like social media. It's like, before it was just Twitter, and then it was Facebook, and then Twitter, and now it's Snapchat and everything else that came after that. It's so hard to keep up with. Now I want to talk to you about a little bit more about your acting career. What genre would you say that you are involved in the most, I guess, if that's worded correctly?
So as far as acting, I'm probably involved in the most with horror movies because that's really big in Ohio.
I think that's why you said Scary Fisher at first, because your mind already went to horror.
Right.
And of course, Carrie was, I believe Carrie, didn't Carrie have a small role in, I want to say one of the Scream movies? I could be wrong. But I know she's popped up in cameos before.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know there's been one in a horror movie. So horror is your genre. You're obviously a horror fan, I would assume.
It's funny enough, I'm not a huge horror fan. But it's, since it's so big in Ohio, I've actually written, directed, and filmed a bunch of horror movies. Even though horror is not my genre, it's just what's really big here. I was just in a movie called Smart House that's actually on Tubi. That I think turned out pretty good. We filmed it all day for a couple days. And it's amazing to make a whole movie just with a couple days of filming. It was crazy.
Yeah. Grueling.
And it was pretty challenging. I was the only person on screen for I was acting with myself for all the times you see me, and I'm the main character in the movie, but I don't really act with any other characters in the movie because I'm interacting with the house. So it was kind of challenging.
That is crazy. Now this is your husband here to the left, correct?
Yes.
All right, tell me a little bit about this. Is he your stunt double?
So this was really funny. At the time, he was doing this because he's also an actor. He was doing this short film, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, Jeremy wants me to play a transvestite hooker." and he said he can do my makeup or you can. So I said, okay. I was like, I've done my own makeup. I've done people's makeup for my projects and stuff. I was like, I'll set you up. But the thing that was the most hilarious by the end of it is everyone claimed that I turned my husband into male version of me. So I thought this photo was hilarious just to see him next to me. We both done some crazy stuff, but
that was so did he film anything like this, or was this more for just kind of for fun, I guess?
Yeah, this was that I cannot remember what the name of this short was, but yeah, this short is out there. His name's Joe Kidd. If you look up his IMDb, you can find it on his list. But yeah, it's out there. We always like to bring it up as just to mess with him all the time.
Yeah, it's a fun photo to say the least. What is now I was reading on your IMDb page as well that you like to portray a character that leaves something behind, I guess memorable, makes an impact. What was the hardest role that you had to get yourself into? Because I read something that you had some nightmares about a role that you were in.
Oh my gosh. So that was a movie called Psycho Killer. But yeah, that movie right there. Yeah, so where we filmed, it's funny, like I know this now, but whenever I showed up to do the role, I had no idea that we were filming in abandoned tuberculosis tunnels. So these were tunnels underneath Cincinnati, most people don't know about, that used to be connected to a tuberculosis hospital. Used to be a bunch of tuberculosis hospitals back in the day in Cincinnati. And for some reason, when they tore down the hospital, they left these tunnels underneath. And these are literally the tunnels where they wheeled the people on gurneys back and forth between, like, they even had a crematorium building still left there where they would burn the bodies. So we filmed Psycho Killer in those tunnels. One of the creepiest things I've ever done in my life.
Wow, yeah, it's kind of cool though, because it's scary in itself, the filming location itself, and you're in the middle of shooting a horror film,
Right.
and you're not even a horror fan, so
Right, yeah, and this is the first horror movie I was involved in. I actually in order that was how I was dressed basically for the scene, and I had to take my arm and put my arm inside the back of my shirt and lay on it for about an hour and a half to film the first shot. And what it looked, and they had a prosthetic arm that came out, and they were basically the bad guy was putting my head in this vice, which I actually got to keep the vice. That's funny, but yeah, that vice right there, I actually still have that. And then yeah, so that's a prosthetic arm that he was like, sawing away at in the shot. And you can see this scene if you look for Psycho Killer. I actually have it uploaded to my YouTube, and you can see a lot of that scene in the trailer for the movie. The
that's
movie's done
crazy.
pretty good online, so people have found it, and like 60,000 views on YouTube, which is pretty
Wow,
nice.
60,000. That's a lot. And you said that this had kind of traumatized you. It had given you nightmares after you had shot this, because this wasn't an easy thing to shoot. This took a long time. Yes.
It did, yeah, yeah. I was sitting like that with my arm behind my back for a really long time. And so when movies are done well, you basically, as an actor, you don't know where the camera is. You become engrossed in that scene that you're doing. So, I'm laying there like this, and it was like 20 degrees outside, on this metal gurney. It was freezing cold. And for an hour, I had very little contact with other people other than doing this scene over and over. And it was so realistic, the whole thing with the scene. I mean, you start to get kind of disoriented by the fact, I'm laying on my arm and my arm's losing circulation. If I look over, like you can see from that photo, that looks real to me.
Yeah, it looks real to me.
Yeah. So, and I think because it was for so long, and because I was getting so cold and stuff like that, I had weird dreams for like a while about that, because my brain started to think that, oh, that was something that actually happened.
Yeah.
So
Well, I would think too, as an actress, you are in that. I mean, like you said, when a movie is done well, when it's done right, you forget that it's there. I mean, I think that says a lot about acting in itself, is that you have to put yourself in that moment if you're going to do it right.
Right.
That is, and especially for somebody that's not a horror fan, that's actually probably turns it up a couple notches.
Right.
What is the one thing that you like most about being an actress?
I guess just exploring different characters and the things that happen to them. I think I really enjoy that. I always
Storytelling.
like, yeah, I always liked understanding other people. Because I think when we interact with other people, sometimes we can get so caught up in what we're doing that we forget to think about what the people around us are actually doing. And I think acting kind of gives you a time to take a pause, understand a character that's not you, and essentially from that, you really start to understand the other people around you. Like you might do a role where your dad dies, but your dad's still alive in real life.
Yeah.
but you have to go through the steps in your head to really understand and feel what that would be like.
Yeah, for sure. You like, yeah, you have to put yourself in that character's shoes.
Right.
What is the least favorite part about the whole process? I know it's not easy. And you prefer something. I have a very bad habit of asking one question and throwing three questions at you.
I do the same thing.
What is your least favorite part of it? The whole process.
So honestly, the waiting around is probably the hardest part.
Sure.
There was a movie we did. I want to say, I think it was. So they all start to blur together for me. I think it was Haunted House on Sorority Row. It was filmed kind of documentary style, and kind of, you know, like in the sense of Blair Witch, like that kind of style, you know. And so when we were filming it, we were trying to film it. This is really weird. So we were trying to film it like it was real in a sense. So we would have it was a very little script, but the script is more like a guideline. It was like, okay, this scene's happen. So we had to pretend to be those characters, and we had to like go through all of this. And one shot might have been 10 minutes. And so you had to pretend you were in that character and figure out what that character would do in those 10 minutes. And you can't say, hold on, what was that? You know, what were we supposed to do now?
Yeah, right.
It was very difficult. And the thing is, and probably the most difficult thing I've ever really done was in the very end of that. There's a scene in the movie where the person with the camera is looking around to try and find people. And they're walking all around, and they finally go down into the basement, and there's no one. They look around, they come back, and I'm laying there dead. And I literally, so what happened is we had to do that take a couple times, and every time I had to clean up in between. It's like they had to pour all this blood on me. I had to wait patiently for the person to do all their things and then go down into the basement. And then I had to like run into a shot unseen by them, and then like lay down on the stairs with all the blood, and they would put a little more blood on me. And then I had to like completely still waiting in case they caught me in the shot for another 10 minutes. And then I had to wait till they were all done. It just the amount of waiting, you know, to compose yourself. Yeah, that's really hard.
Now you like I mentioned, you've done a lot of different stuff. You've produced it. You've produced, directed. You're a writer. You are a musician. What is your, if you could pick one thing, what are you? I was going to say, what are you most proud of? But at the same time, what are you most proud of, and what do you enjoy the most? Those are probably two different answers.
Right. So what I enjoy the most, I really, really do love acting, but in general, it's the creation of a character is what I really, really like. And I really get into that in writing.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
yeah, writing the scripts, developing the characters, I love that. Even so much, you know, to go to the fact of deciding what that character is going to wear in that scene. And I enjoy that about the acting side of it too. My writer brain comes out, even though I'm in other people's movies, and I'm like, you know, they'll be like, oh, wear this or that. And I'm like, well, I was thinking, you know, with this, you know, like they would wear this color and that. And they're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even thinking about that. So kind of like just the character design, I think, is probably my favorite thing I enjoy the most, whether it's character design through, you know, the eyes of the camera or through acting or writing. But I'd say the thing that I'm probably the most proud about, I recently, there was a movie I made called Sula Lee that this picture is actually from. And I actually got nominated for editing for that in the film festival that we put it in. So that was a huge thing, because there's so much that goes into editing the movies. Like if you get nominated for that, that literally means like, you know, you did a good job. You found all the issues, but it's it's hard to get to that point.
Yeah. And it's, I think out of everything, editing is just the longest process, you know.
It is.
And it's kind of like it's a job that you don't get thanked for, and it's a job that, you know, you don't get appreciated for. So like you said, when you win the award, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, because it's so tedious, like, you know, and no one, there's no praise behind doing good editing. I mean, you know, if
No.
you do good editing, they're going to see, oh, the cinematography is awesome. They're going to see, oh, the acting's awesome. Oh, this is a cool story.
Yeah,
Like, it's
right.
when the editing is bad, people notice that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like when it's bad, you hear about it, but when it's great, it's like unless you win the award, you know, it gets lost in the shuffle. All the hard work.
Right.
Um,
Right.
well, hey, I want to go back to a little bit of your bio. I read that you are a big Oakland fan because you're from there. Now the Raiders won the Super Bowl on your birthday. The
Right.
Oakland A's, the baseball team. I'm a baseball junkie. They're moving, unfortunately, to Vegas, and the Raiders moved.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, as a fan, as an Oakland fan, how do you feel about the teams, football team first, now the baseball team, relocating? I could not imagine that.
It's heartbreaking for me in the sense that, like, you know, I was actually the first, whenever they won in 81, I was the first girl born in Oakland after they won. So, like, they had all these guys born, and then I was the first girl right after they won. So I was like that's why I always joke, I have to be an Oakland Raiders fan, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I will say, with the way things have gone over the years, Oakland is a less desirable place to go to see the Raiders play than Vegas is.
Yeah, that's or the baseball team, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but as a fan, it's got to, because I'm a huge Tampa Bay Rays fan, and I know, thank God, they finally announced that they are building a new stadium, because for years it was like they were going to relocate, and I'm like, I've never lived a day in my family lives down there, but just as a big fan of that team, I was like, they can't fucking leave Florida. That's where they're from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's one of those things, like, they'll always be the Oakland Raiders to me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to call them the Vegas Raiders. It
yeah,
just feels
yeah.
weird.
It's like the Sears Tower in Chicago. It's like, no, it's still the Sears Tower. It's not the
Right.
Willis Tower.
Yeah. I will
You know?
say, though, something that's helped is my husband has it way worse. He's a Washingtons fan. And, you know, they changed from the Redskins to Commanders, and now there's, like, talk that they're gonna change names again. So I feel
Yeah.
like I have nothing to complain about. Like,
Yeah.
he's being torn left and right over things with his team. So
It's kind of like it was the Cleveland Indians. Now it's the Cleveland Guardians, you know, and I don't know, change. I get it, right? Trying to change the name of a team for a more PC environment, but at the same time, you know, it really starts to change the identity of the team and the history of the team as well. You know,
yeah.
it's very, very complicated, very complicated. Something that's a little less complicated is music, and I know you have composed music for some film projects. You obviously are a musician. Do you still play? And what was the first concert that you went to? First ever concert that you went to?
Oh my gosh, the first concert. Jeez.
And it doesn't matter. Maybe it was bad at the time, but it doesn't matter. That was still your first.
So I can't remember if either it would have been like a little local band, like someone I knew in high school. But I want to say, I think that the first concert I went to would have been before that. And I think it was actually, I don't know if you remember a band called Silverchair.
Yeah, I remember Silverchair. Yes.
Yeah, I went to a concert of theirs down in, like, I lived in Orlando. I want to say it was like down in Tampa or something, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to that concert. It was I have the memories of that to this day. I know the band. I think the band that opened for him was called Automatic. And like, when the guy jumped out, and like, that was back in my days where I was like in the mosh pit. I was like one of those girls.
Yeah.
And he jumped, I think it was the singer for Automatic, jumped out into the crowd, and I remember he landed right on me, and I was like, yeah. And I pushed it aside because everyone cleared but me. So I didn't clear out of the way. I'd never had that happen before. It was my first like big concert. And the
That's
guy
crazy.
stood up and there was like blood everywhere from when he hit the ground. I felt so bad. But man, it was memorable. It is so much fun. And in fact, I've thought the memories of that, hang with me so tightly that when I heard I really want to go see, I don't know if it'll happen. The tickets are so expensive, but Green Day is coming to Cincinnati this summer. And I'm like, man, I really want to go to that. I've always wanted to see Green Day in concert. And I've never been.
You know what? That is the tour with Smashing Pumpkins and Rancid. And I will tell you, as somebody that spent many, many years, my first part of my career in the music business, and I have seen what it's become, right? It's kind of like what Star Wars Celebration has become. It's become this big money maker of a machine. I got to tell you, the tickets for such a bill that has at least two really solid bands on it, Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins, the tickets, in my opinion, were actually kind of reasonable.
They are. They're expensive,
they're
but
expensive.
you're right.
They're expensive, but I think compared to what everybody else, like my wife was like, yeah, I'm thinking about going to see Pink. And I'm like, you can't kind of sort of think about going to Pink when the tickets are fucking $300 for the nosebleed.
Right.
I said right then and there, that is enough.
That's true. Yeah.
To, make up your mind. Are you still playing music?
I do. Yeah, I still play. I take my guitar out every now and then. My biggest thing was I won a lot of awards for my flute whenever I was younger. I still play that sometimes too. I think once you're a musician, you can never cut that out.
Amen to that. I put my guitar down for so many years, and before I made my second documentary, I kind of hung it up to kind of focus on that aspect of creating art. And the funny thing is that moons ago, I always wanted to write music for film, and I never did. And now I'm like, I finally started picking up the guitar again. So yeah, once you start playing, especially if you played in school too, you said you've won several awards in that, it's kind of hard to get rid of that part of your past,
Yeah.
Your favorite film that you were in, what do you have one? Like if somebody's like, hey, I really want to see you in one of your films, what film would you recommend to somebody that has not seen anything outside You and the Force Among Us?
Well, oh geez, that's a big question. I guess I would say there's so much iconic in my memories of getting involved in film with doing Psycho Killer, that movie. It's a very unusual movie, so I would definitely recommend people to watch that. Especially you just go on my YouTube and you can watch it there. Oh gosh, I was actually in a little web series called Capes. I don't even know. I know it's got to still be out on the internet somewhere, but I play a superhero dominatrix, and that little web series was hilarious. So that's
it's comedy. So for people that aren't into horror, that one, I think I saw, because I saw a couple photos of you. Well, not a couple, several photos of you online. I think I know. I found the superhero dominatrix one.
Yeah.
Comedy is a good thing. Hey, we are running out of time. I want to thank you for joining me on the show, and I feel like the hour just burned up. But before I let you go, I'm going to put you on the spot here. There is a game that we've played several times in the past. This is the 5th calendar year of Machtails from the Cantina. Not enough ladies have played this game in the past. And I would really like it if you would be a sport and play this game. We call this Shag, Marry, or Carbonite. Producer Matthew says, you know what? We don't want to kill anybody on the show, because it was Shag, Marry, Disintegrate. So I'm like, okay, Shag, Marry, Carbonite. I don't know.
Awesome.
You feel okay playing this game?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. I feel like every time I get a chance to have a lady on the show to play this, it kind of softens the blow a little bit for some people that get offended. Why are all the guys playing this game? So, okay, here we go. Now,
Sounds great.
we're going to go prequels. We're celebrating the 25th anniversary of what kicked off the prequels, The Phantom Menace. So, Shag, Mary, Carbonite, we're going to go, you know what? You can go actor or character. You know what? For you, let's go character, because I know you said you really, really love the character story. That's one of your favorite parts. That's what your podcast is kind of about. We have Mace Windu. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi, or we have Anakin Skywalker.
This one,
I'm going to shag out of this bunch.
I'm gonna feel bad about this one. I have nothing against Mace Windu, but I'm gonna have to put him in Carbonite because he's
save him for his next journey, right?
yeah. But I would say, you know what guys always joke with girls, that crazy is better, under the covers. So I guess I'll have to say for Shag, I'll put Anakin under Shag, and then I'll marry for Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I could see marrying Obi-Wan is going to maybe get you a little bit more focused. But like you said, wild underneath the sheets, that would definitely be Anakin Skywalker. So, well, hey, I want to thank you for playing Shag, Mary, Carbonite. And I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been a blast having you on the show. And I look forward to having you on the show down the road again. Maybe I can have your husband on. You said he's a hypnotist, and he's also a filmmaker and an actor. So it'd be great to do a little. You know what? One of the games we play on the show is agree to disagree. I think you guys would be great for that.
That's awesome.
So, hey, it's been 16 and a half years in the making. Again, thank you so much for your time joining the show, and I look forward to having you on again.
Sounds good. I had a blast. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hey, be well, be safe, and I will catch you on another episode. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in live. Thank you for tuning in on the playback. Patreon name draw isn't going to happen today because I want to see for all the Patreon members that were tuning in live. If you want to comment in the comment section, I know Brad Riverdale had chimed in earlier. If you can let me know what the drinking word of the night was, that would be great. And I want to remind you guys to please join Machtails from the Cantina on Patreon. $2 gets you in the door. I'm the scumbag that charges you for a weekly podcast, but with 160 plus podcast episodes on a weekly basis. We're going on our 4th anniversary of this. 3rd anniversary of the podcast, I should say. So, hey, I want to thank my guest, Ia, for joining me on the show. I want to thank Brother Rich Brendel. I want to thank everybody that had tuned in live. We will catch you guys next time on another episode of Mocktails from the Cantina Live. Be well, be safe. And the canteen is closed. It doesn't mean you have to go home, but you can't stay here. Hey, so long, everybody.